Non-discrimination policies. Equal employment opportunity policy. No applicant or employee will be discriminated against or treated unfavorably because of race, color, religion, national origin, sex, sexual orientation, age or disability. Any person who is aware of any alleged violation of this policy should report concerns to the Human Resources Manager as soon as possible. The company will thoroughly investigate and resolve all complaints. Any employee violating this policy or retaliating in any way will be subject to discipline, up to and including termination. Prohibited discrimination. Gardens Alive prohibits all forms of unlawful harassment. Unlawful harassment prohibited by this policy includes verbal or physical conduct which degrades or shows hostility, aversion to an individual because of his, her race, color, religion, gender, national origin, age, disability or marital status, or that of his, her relatives, friends or associates. Sexual harassment. Unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and other verbal or physical conduct of a sexual nature constitute sexual harassment. For example, the following kinds of behavior are absolutely prohibited: abusing an employee through insulting or degrading sexual remarks, jokes, innuendos or other sexually oriented conduct, threats, demand or suggestion that an employee's work status depends in any way upon tolerating or accepting sexual advances or sexually oriented conduct. Retaliation. Retaliation against an individual for exercising their rights under this policy is also strictly prohibited and is a separate violation of this policy. No one has authority to violate this policy. Under no circumstances does any manager, supervisor, employee or any other person have any authority whatsoever to engage in discriminating, harassing, or retaliating conduct in violation of this policy. Complaint procedures and corrective action. Complaints or inquiries under this policy may be made to Human Resources, who have overall responsibilities for the enforcement of this policy. Alternatively, you may initially discuss the matter with any supervisor, who will then bring your complaint to the attention of Human Resources. Please do not allow conduct that may violate this policy to continue unreported. Confidentiality. Complaints and inquiries under this policy are kept confidential. Investigation. Complaints are investigated promptly. Corrective action. Any employee who is determined to have committed harassment or retaliation in violation of this policy will be subjected to appropriate disciplinary measures up to and including termination of employment. Evaluation period. All employees hired, rehired, or agency conversions will work through an evaluation period for the first 60 working days. Employees must successfully complete their evaluation period before becoming eligible for company benefits. During the 60 days, employees are not eligible for holiday pay. General rules and regulations. Performance rules. Always make your best effort in your work. You are expected to meet reasonable standards of efficiency, productivity, and performance. Insubordination. Insubordination is prohibited. Insubordination includes the failure or refusal to obey the orders or instructions of a supervisor or management, the use of abusive language towards such individuals, or any conduct that undermines supervisory authority. Behavior toward others. Do not make false or defamatory statements about employees, supervisors, management, the company or its products, customers, suppliers, or visitors at any time. Workplace violence. Gardens Alive is committed to preventing violence in the workplace and maintaining a safe work environment that is free of all forms of harassment or violence. Employees are expected to conduct themselves in an appropriate manner. Firearms, weapons, and other dangerous or hazardous devices or substances are strictly prohibited from the premises of Gardens Alive. All suspicious individuals or activities, including actual threats of violence, both direct and indirect, should be reported immediately to your supervisor or other member of management. Property of others. Do not abuse, misuse, damage, destroy, sabotage, or steal company property, machines, tools, or equipment, or the property of employees, supervisors, customers, suppliers, or visitors. The use of company equipment or tools for personal purposes is prohibited without prior permission. Honesty. Do not falsify or fail to disclose completely all information requested or recorded on any employment, personnel, production, or other record of the company or its suppliers, customers, or insurance carriers. Condition of company premises. Keep your work area safe and clean at all times. Equipment and supplies are provided for this purpose. Access to premises. Persons who are not company employees, inactive employees, or employees not working their regularly scheduled shifts shall sign in at the front desk. Personal communication devices. Cell phone/smartphone usage and text messaging are permitted only during breaks and lunch in non-working areas. They must be turned off and kept somewhere other than on your person or in your immediate work area at all other times. Phones are not to be used to take pictures on company premises at any time. Dress code. We ask your dress appropriately for our type of business and your position in particular. Your clothing should not be hazardous to your own safety, for example open-toed or open-heeled shoes or loose-hanging shirt tails if you are working around machinery. Secondary employment. It is the policy of Gardens Alive to allow its employees to hold second jobs. Secondary employment for full-time employees is not encouraged, however, since the demands and requirements of the employee's job at Gardens Alive are considered primary. Security and search policy. Gardens Alive wishes to maintain a work environment that is free of illegal drugs, alcohol, firearms, explosives, or other improper materials. To this end, Gardens Alive prohibits the possession, transfer, sale, or use of such materials on its premises. To facilitate enforcement of this policy, Gardens Alive or its representative may inspect upon reasonable suspicion of unauthorized possession of company property. Tobacco and electronic cigarette policy. Gardens Alive allows the use of tobacco products only in designated areas, outside at picnic tables. This policy also addresses smokeless tobacco in any form. Please dispose of butts in the receptacles provided. Due to past fires in the receptacles, please make sure your cigarettes are out before disposing of them. Other rules. Personal phone calls are not permitted, except in cases of emergency. Only drinks with spill-proof lids and hard candy are permitted in the work areas. Safety rules. Headphone or earbud use is not permitted in warehouse or greenhouse areas. A negligent unsafe act that causes injury or sufficient property damage will result in termination. Alcohol and drug use. The consumption of and/or possession of alcoholic beverages or illegal drugs on company property, including company vehicles, is strictly prohibited and will result in immediate suspension and disciplinary action, up to and including termination. Anyone reporting to work with alcohol or drugs in their system shall be sent home and will be subject to disciplinary action, up to and including termination. The company retains the right to send any employee for an alcohol/drug test anytime there is an industrial accident or if management feels there is reasonable suspicion that an employee has alcohol or drugs in their system. Promptly report accidents and injuries. On-the-job accidents, injuries, and illnesses, regardless of how minor, must be reported to your supervisor immediately. Accident has to be reported by end of shift or written up. Call-in procedures. Regardless of the reason for your being absent or late, you are expected to call in before your scheduled start time. You must leave a message on voicemail stating the reason for your absence, lateness and a number where you can be reached. The number to call is 513-354-1503, Extension 2220. Sick time. Employees are eligible for sick time to deal with unplanned events beyond the employee's control and or personal or family illness that may or may not require a visit to a doctor, hospital. This time is not to be used as vacation time during our peak season. New hires have 16 unpaid hours per quarter. Excuse time off. Time off for the following reasons will also be excused as long as acceptable documentation on appropriate letterhead is provided. The following are acceptable reasons: court appearances with a valid subpoena, jury duty, bereavement, child care, licensed professionals, school-generated emergency. Time off without documentation will not be excused and will require the employee to use sick time. Late in, early out. Late in, early out less than 2 hours an occurrence will be applied. If no occurrences remain, 2 hours of sick time will be applied. Late in, early out 4 hours 2 or 4 hours of sick time will be applied. Late in, early out more than 4 hours an absence will be applied. Late is late, even if you're 1 minute late. Absences will be tracked on a rolling 12-month period. Failure to work all mandatory or committed voluntary overtime will be considered an absence. Employees allowed to leave due to lack of work will not be considered absent. Review procedure. If you believe you have been treated unfairly under this policy, discuss the situation with your crew leader, coordinator or manager. Make sure he or she understands all the circumstances surrounding your absences. If your problem is not resolved, then review with human resources. If still not resolved, then review with the vice president of your department. Break and lunch periods. 2 10-minute breaks. Half hour for lunch. Badge issuance. Employees who cannot swipe in because they do not have their badge have the following options. Buy a new badge, badge fee $5. Retrieve existing badge, attendance policy applies. If you clock in more than 15 minutes early, you won't get paid overtime. The following are grounds for discipline, up to and including discharge. Swiping another employee's badge. Allowing another employee to swipe your badge. Not clocking in to avoid being late. Failure to swipe in and out. Payday. Gardens Alive pays its employees every other Friday. Bi-weekly, must work 2 weeks before first paycheck. The checks of terminated employees will be mailed prior to payday.